Yo people, welcome back to another review. This time Bad Batch Season 2 Episode 12 The Outpost, and we start off with Crosshair spectating the current state of the Empire as we can see Stormtrooper armor and clone armor in the same place. However, there's a lot more Stormtroopers than clones, probably for the first time ever across the two seasons of the Bad Batch, which shows how we're closing in on the Empire's regime, the start of it, the proper start of it, which shows now that the clones are becoming the minority of the army, and we even overhear a conversation that the Empire has made some clones go into forced retirement. We're introduced to this new lieutenant named Nolan, and he briefs Crosshair about the upcoming mission, and he seems annoyed that he's been given even more clones to work with and go and do the mission with, as he says he doesn't like, and I quote, used equipment. Clearly he has an agenda with the clones, we're not really sure what it is, but he just hates them. So the ship arrives at the Imperial Depot, and for a second I thought we bumped into Commander Cody, but with like a big beard and long hair, but it wasn't. The clone commander is actually named Mayday. He gives Crosshair a tour of the place, he explains how raiders have decided to attack the Imperial Depot and take stuff from the Empire. However, he doesn't know what the actual stuff is that they're taking because the Empire doesn't want to tell them what is inside the boxes. We then see the raiders attack the depot and Crosshair gets into position to snipe. A ship explodes, it causes him to distress, I don't even know what happened to him, but he manages to regain focus, snipe the survivor who managed to escape. However, he left a trail of blood. Commander Mayday loses two of his men, and Mayday and Crosshair are the last two soldiers left after that attack. Lieutenant Nolan cries and hates on Mayday. He says that he doesn't want to give him more men, more equipment, nothing. He just has to carry on with the mission and whatever happens, happens. Mayday then starts telling stories and kind of indirectly convincing Crosshair why working for the Empire right now is not good, like how Cody was doing. He's not trying to do it directly, he's not trying to convince him, but it's one of those where it feels like Crosshair can connect to the same experiences being told by Mayday, and he may feel the same way, but he doesn't want to admit it. Mayday and Crosshair then get to the raiders' cave after following the whole trail of blood and all of that stuff, and they take on all the raiders until they blow up the cave. The cargo ends up being the new Stormtrooper gear, and that's why the Empire never told the clones what was inside the cargo boxes, probably because they wanted it all kept a secret so the clones wouldn't get upset. And it's during this when Mayday gets pretty, I wouldn't say triggered, but he feels betrayed because people are getting new upgrades, new armor, while the clones are stuck with the old armor. Mayday then gives another indirect to make Crosshair wake up that the clones are being treated like garbage by the Empire. Out of nowhere, a delayed avalanche then happens because of the explosion that happened in the cave, and as they're running away from the avalanche, Mayday pushes Crosshair out of the way, and if it wasn't for that, Crosshair would have crashed into a huge rock. Instead, Mayday pushes him, saves him, and he crashes into the rock, and the snow buries both of them. Crosshair manages to kind of dig up himself, and then he runs over to Mayday and starts digging him up. After he digs him up, we can see that Mayday is not in the greatest condition. He tells him to leave him. He's basically dead at this point, but Crosshair decides to carry him all the way back to the outpost, despite saying earlier on in the episode that there was no point for the raiders to carry the raider that had been bleeding and leaving the trail behind, and Crosshair saw that as being dead weight. So it shows Crosshair liked Mayday, or at least respected him enough as a brother, and we see the character development. Crosshair and Mayday finally make it back to the outpost, and Nolan makes all the stormtroopers go away. He tells them, oh, go check the cargo, do whatever. Crosshair asks Nolan to get a medic before Mayday dies because they could still bring him back to life. They need a medic ASAP. Nolan refuses, he says there's no point, and Mayday dies right there and then. He even says that he wouldn't do it because it's a waste of resources on clones. Nolan keeps dissing the clones as he treats them like garbage and calls them expendable, and Crosshair finally snaps, he finally gets angry, he finally sees that the Empire is using them, which causes him to call the lieutenant as Nolan is walking away, and as he turns to face Crosshair, Crosshair shoots him. And my respect for him increased massively, because if this was a good guy, we would have got the standard receive abuse and do nothing about it. But this time Crosshair, he's had enough and he killed Nolan for being an absolute piece of garbage. The stormtroopers obviously hear the gunshot. They all run to Crosshair as Crosshair is falling on the floor and he passes out. Crosshair then wakes up and it turns out he's being held for observation, and we see the same doctor that we saw on Tantis last episode. So it means that Crosshair is now in the cloning facility in the mountain where we saw all of those Empire cloning plans taking place. We see he's being injected in the neck, he's being sedated, and end of episode. Overall, I was impressed by this episode because it was something so simple, but they managed to get a message behind it and make it very impactful, despite it looking like a standard episode. Again, I'd say it's one of the best episodes of this season and probably across the whole 2 seasons that we've had of the Bad Batch. And once again, unfortunately, the Bad Batch were not even involved in the episode. These episodes that just focus on the actual Empire go a long way, and that's more of the stuff that we want to see. If we can connect the Bad Batch to the episodes that involve the Empire, then that's a bonus, but we don't want to see these Sid missions. We want to see more of the Empire. It's crazy how they've taken Crosshair into a cloning facility now. They've taken him to Tantis, and I think that this is what will happen next. I assume Omega will get captured because of Sid. I think Sid will snake them out. Now, 2 things will happen with this. Either the Bad Batch get taken too, or somehow they manage to avoid not being taken as well. If they manage to not be taken, I think they'll call Echo and Rex as backup and they'll do the whole breakout mission thing. Because Omega will be at the same spot as Crosshair, the Bad Batch will eventually end up bumping into Crosshair as they're looking for Omega. And I think this will allow Crosshair to finally be able to redeem himself with the Bad Batch. And I think he will probably sacrifice himself so that his brothers can escape the facility. I'm slightly worried for Echo as well if he does come back and if he does help out in the mission, because we know that he wasn't seen in the Rebels animated show. So is it because he dies here? Does he sacrifice himself here? Is he gone by the end of this season? But yeah, I'm actually impressed with this season so far. The non-filler Sid episodes have been top tier. They've reminded me of the top episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels. So I wish we can see more of this. I hope there's more of this to come. I do see this as the calm before the storm, and there will be a massive ending by the end of this whole thing. It will be crazy if we somehow see Ahsoka maybe helping the Bad Batch to escape or something like that, because she obviously has the Rex connection. I think that's a massive prediction. I'd be surprised if it happened. I don't want to set myself these expectations, but I think that would be massive for the Bad Batch franchise as well if Ahsoka can come out and help, especially in that last episode or when they do the breakout. And yeah, that wraps up this review. Shout out to everyone that made it this far. I appreciate all the support. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one and have a great rest of your day.